Welcome into the first Friday Q&A episode on the Deal in the Cards channel. We're excited to bring back this series for this year, and today we'll address topics such as Thomas JC being recalled to the Major League roster, Nolan Gorman's IL stint, what that means for the Cardinals for the next few weeks. We'll talk about some of the positional logjams in the short-term and long-term future and what that could mean for the club, as well as some things like a transition to the six-man rotation that's coming up here soon, and a variety of other topics that have popped up with this 2025 club so far. So we'll address all these questions and more on this episode of Deal in the Card. Excited to be doing the Q&A episode once again this year. We had a great response of that last year. And so thanks for your support on the channel. And as always with these Q&A episodes, we field your questions. And so you can comment on this video for next week's video. Some questions you have. If you join our membership program on the YouTube channel, which you can do on the browser version, you can join our Discord and submit questions there. Or also we try to post an update about this on Twitter before we record each episode. And so you can submit questions on there. And so we have a load of questions submitted from you guys this week that we want to address on this week's episode. But before we do, right before I start recording here, we got the news that Nolan Gorman is hitting the IL with a hamstring injury. We don't know the severity of that yet. So it is a 10-day IL stint. Will it be? It's retroactive to April 2nd, I believe. So how long will he be on the IL? That's a good question. I'll talk about that in a second. But then prospect Thomas JC was recalled in his place, and he will join the club in Boston for game 1 of their weekend series against the Red Sox. My quick thoughts on this is that the fact that they brought up JC makes me think that this is a shorter stint. I know some people are seeing this as, okay, Wynn has a backup shortstop now. And in theory, yes, because he's probably the guy next on the pecking order over Brendan Donovan as a backup option. But Oliver Marmol has been pretty clear that he wants Mason Wynn to play every day. Like, I think in his ideal world, that's closer to 162 than it is 150. This isn't like Brandon Crawford last year where Mason Wynn's getting these scheduled off days. I know he struggled offensively to begin the year. And there's some mechanical things you can see with his load and leg kick right now that his timing's off, but he is hitting the ball hard. He did finally get into the hit column in an important situation in their 6th game, and they're winning the salvaging the series against the Angels. I do think they want Wynn to play every day. And so I don't see JC coming up as, they're going to give Wynn some off days. Could they? Maybe. And so I could be wrong on that. I think it's more of, I think this probably means Gorman isn't going to be out for a while. And so with a shorter IL stint, rather than bringing it for me, they're going to get a little bit more firepower off the bench late in games or pinch hit situations, especially when a lefty comes up. That's where JC really does his damage. Again, the Cardinals offense in general struggles against left-handed pitching. And so that's just another option that they can go to late in games. And Gorman played 2 of the 6 games they played this year so far. So I can see JC in a similar rotation, if not playing less frequently. But yeah, we'll see what happens with all of that. The game today will be he's not playing, he's not set to start today, but we could see him make it into the game. But again, it's been a fun start to the season so far for the Cardinals. I'll get into your questions here in a second. But because of that, you might want to go down to the ballpark, and so make sure to check out our code NewtNews over on SeatGeek. You can get $20 off your first order for tickets. So use that as an opportunity to go get better seats than what maybe you typically would at a game, or if you're going with some people to get a discount, or just, saving $20 is a great thing whenever. So yeah, go check out SeatGeek. Use this promo code NewtNews to get some money off your order on tickets. So we'll jump into the questions here today. The first question is related to logjam stuff, because I know that's a lot of people's concerns with JC here being on the roster, and Gorman and Burleson and all that. So we'll get into that. But the question came through as, regardless of the season's outcome, there appears to be log jam for many positions moving forward with players currently on the roster and in the minor leagues. Who do you see getting moved in the offseason? Who do you see the new regime wanting to build around? I mean, I think the boring answer, but the right answer at the top is that I don't know. Like, as in, like, in terms of, well, okay, that's not totally fair. I think like it's easy to see Newt Bar someone they want to build around, Win someone when they build around. Win. Donovan Longterm is someone they probably want to build around. I think Ivan Herrera is someone they want to build around. Now, is that as a catcher? We'll see. I think to say, like, who do they want to trade is a little too soon, because if the season does go south, does Wilson Contreras want to leave? And does Nolan Arenado finally get traded? Because if so, that clears up a lot of space right there. But if both of those guys are set to be around in 2026, okay, then maybe you do have to make a tough decision about Alec Burleson or Nolan Gorman or guys like that. So I do think the part of this question that I think is easier to answer but could change, but I don't think would, is it's like, who do we kind of know they want to keep, right? Or at least there's not really a scenario where they're not here in 2026. And I think that goes Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan. I think to an extent Victor Scott. I don't know if that guarantees he's the starter in 2026, but I don't see him going anywhere before then. And I think Ivan Herrera in some capacity, right? Like, I think his bat's too good at this point for them to trade. But is he a catcher or first baseman? We'll talk about that later, or DH. So the guys that I think you could be like, okay, who are the names to watch? As in, like, they're kind of figuring out their roles here in St. Louis or somewhere else. Alec Burleson, Nolan Gorman, Pedro Pages to an extent, because you've got the Jimmy Crooks side of things coming, but I don't think they're in an effort to move him very quickly. The Nolan Arenado thing's really interesting. Like, what do they end up doing with him long term? Sajasi, more so like if they think he's more valuable as a piece in a trade versus being on their bench. Like, they think he's too valuable to just be on the bench, and so why not turn that into some kind of value? That could be a thing, but even long term, I think for Sajasi, it's probably more likely that he ends up being a part-time or lower end starter than a everyday Mason Wynn style, Lars Nootbaar style bat. So I don't know how concerned they are on that end, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's fair to wonder about Alec Burleson's future, to Luken Baker, Nolan Gorman. I wouldn't be shocked, but I think I definitely wouldn't be surprised at this point if one of Gorman or Burleson are gone by next year. But also some of this depends on, like, okay, is JJ Weatherholt ready by early 2026, or are they wanting him on the roster by early 2026? Because if so, that might make some of these decisions for them. Or maybe an opportunity presents itself that they're like, oh, we can't refuse this, right? Because I'll use I'll use the Nolan Gorman for, like, say Nolan Gorman has a really good year this year, and they're like, oh, he's a part of our future now. But then there's an opportunity to move him for a front end starting pitcher in a package. Well, they might be like, yeah, we would keep Nolan Gorman, but this opportunity is in front of us now, so now we're going to move him. So I don't think it's as simple as they're going to decide, oh, we're for sure going to trade guys this year. I don't think, unless there could be a Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson type situation that pops up this year. But I think in their ideal world that they enter in the offseason with options where it's like, hey, I'll use, even though I don't think they'll trade Brendan Donovan, and I would be very sad if they did. Let's look at Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman. They might be like, hey, we love Brendan Donovan. We would rather have him, but we could use him to go get a front end starter. Again, not straight up 1-for-1, but like in a package. And we like that deal and we want to do it. And we have Nolan Gorman, who we don't like as much, but we like the idea of a front end starter, Nolan Gorman, over just Brendan Donovan, whatever we can get for Nolan Gorman. So like that, I think that's an ideal world of flexibility for an organization. It's not that they're like, oh, we just have to figure out which guys we have to get rid of. It's, do we the flexibility to go make aggressive moves that they want to at some point as well. So hopefully all that makes sense. And again, some of this will become clear as the year goes on, right? Because if Jordan Walker is just awful, then it's like, okay, well, maybe he's the odd man now. Or if Lars Nootbaar continues to get hurt, I don't think he gets moved unless it's for value, but he might not be the entrenched left fielder, right? So we'll see those type of things. But second question that we have is that if the Cardinals play 500 ball or better on this road trip, do you think we will see a significant uptick in attendance when they return to Busch Stadium? If not, what is going to bring them back? That's a great question. I know Sandy and Andrew and Kareem talked about this on the podcast, or it might have just been Sandy and Andrew at that point when I had to dip for, if you were watching, there's tornado stuff in my area, so I had to dip for a minute. But early season ticket sales are more of a reflection, and I think this is a good thought process, and of that fans feeling coming into the season than it is how they played the night before, right? Because you have, like, for example, I don't live 30 minutes from the stadium. I live multiple hours away. And so it's like, if I'm going to the game, I'm planning ahead to do that. And unless you're in the area, a lot of families or people want to go to the game. It's like they've marked their calendar. They bought the ticket a month in advance or a week in advance. They plan to go to that game. And so I don't think it's as simple as, oh, they won 3 straight games and so now the stadium's gonna be packed. Sometimes stuff like that can happen, and I do hope there's a little bit better attendance. I also think weather's played a role in that recently. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the earliest that Major League season has started in baseball history, and so like you're starting earlier in March now, and so it's like, okay, well, you've got school, you've got cold weather, you've got tornado stuff, you've got crazy stuff going on that also plays into the fact that people already weren't buying tickets up front as much as they used to. So I would look, I'm personally, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I'm personally waiting more toward like end of May, early June to get a vibe of like, okay, are people coming back to the ballpark or not? If they're playing well in middle of May and people still aren't coming by the end of May, early June, that to me might be an indicator, okay, this is a bigger issue than they'd like. But I think they've anticipated this too, where they didn't expect early season ticket sales to be great. They wanted to come out of the gates hot so that tickets would sell as the year goes on. And so far, knock on wood, that plan is working. Will continue to work. We'll see how it goes in Boston and against the Pirates and Phillies and all of that. Before I continue on talking about a couple more questions, I want to thank a couple sponsors of the podcast. We always want to thank 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles for their awesome support of the podcast. They're located at 9640 Olive Boulevard and all of that. Open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards in the new selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. We know many of you already checked them out. We get DMs sometimes of selfies of you guys in the store and checking out 314. And so many of you are frequent customers there now. So make sure, if you haven't caught 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles before, go check them out. Let them know we sent you. Let us know what you pull or what cards you buy while you're in there. And they're an awesome place to check out, whether it's sports cards or other sports memorabilia. So make sure to check out 3-1 Sports Cards and Collectibles. And then we also want to thank you or tell you about another sponsor for our podcast, Underdog Sports.
The Deal on the Cards podcast is proud to be partnered with Underdog Sports, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You're now eligible to play in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and 37 other U.S. states. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries.
Thanks again to Underdog Sports for sponsoring the podcast. You can use the promo code CARDS, which is on the top of the screen right now if you're listening to audio, cards. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a link in the description to download Underdog Sports and to play fantasy games. And so you can get a first free deposit offer match up to $1,000 in bonus cash, your first deposit plus a first free pick when you use Underdog Sports with our promo code CARDS. Again, like and subscribe helps channel a ton. I've got more questions we're going to go through here, but if you're watching and enjoying this, comment down below if you're enjoying the Q&A series and want more of this. And if you have questions, submit them for next week, or you can come back to this video later and submit questions, or again, join our Discord through our membership or on Twitter. You can submit questions. But next question is, do you have any concerns about upcoming 6-man rotation and what it can or will do to their bullpen? We've already had a game in the Angels series where relief options were severely limited, and a 6-man rotation limits a bullpen even further. I think this is a great question, and it's the drawback, right, of going to a 6-man rotation is now you're down to a 7-man bullpen. And again, that Angels series was a unique one where you go to extra innings twice. And so there's an element, and it's early in the season, so your starters are not getting pressed as much, which again, the 6-man rotation, maybe they end up getting an extra 10 to 15 pitches added to their pitch count because they're getting that extra day of rest. But again, you really at this point when you're getting to the 6-man rotation, there's been a lot of 5 and dives in the Cardinals so far. Rotation, it's been a good start, but again, as the season goes on, you're gonna want to see more 6 and 7 innings if possible. Again, 7-8 innings is less frequent in today's game. We all know that it's a different era of baseball. But yeah, it would be ideal if the Cardinals could get more innings out of the rotation to help with that bullpen mix. I also think this is where we maybe start to see the Memphis shuttle get rolling. And if you know that, it's like, again, at some point, maybe Chris Roycroft gets used a couple times in a few games. And it's like, yeah, ideally we'd like him in our bullpen, but we're going to send him down, bring up Riley O'Brien for a fresh arm, bring up Gordon Graceffo for a fresh arm. I'd be interested to see if specifically a guy like Graceffo is called upon because of the fact that he can give you multi-inning outings. And so maybe they bring him up in order to say, hey, like Graceffo can cover the 6th and 7th inning next game if we need to. And they just might start cycling through some arms for a little bit there. They'll do that during the season too. Don't expect this bullpen group to stay the same even when it's healthy. They're probably going to see some opportunities when it just happens every year, right? When your bullpen's taxed and it's like, hey, we got to make a move here. So we have some fresh arms. So yeah, we'll see kind of what happens with that. I'm concerned to an extent for sure, where it's like, yeah, like if you get a couple bad starts in a row, this could be messy pretty quickly. But at the same time, they don't have to stick with the 6-man group. Like if they feel like it's super thin, they could move Steven Matz right back to the bullpen to be like, hey, we need some opportunity. We need some innings out of you from the bullpen. Because our bullpen's really thin right now. My thing that I just don't want to see them do, which it doesn't sound like they're going to do because they've made Matthew Liberatore the 5th starter, is that if Libby's in the rotation, he stays in the rotation. Like if you decide to move him to the bullpen, then stick him in the bullpen. He should not be the guy where they're like, oh, we need a spot. We need like a couple innings out of you on this day. And then you're going to start again the next time around. It's like, that's Matt's. Don't do that to Liberatore at this point for sure. Next question we have on here, I've alluded to a few times already, but it's the how do you see Ivan Herrera's future with the Cardinals? Is he a catcher or does he move to another position? I think ideally, and it's why the Cardinals continue to put him at catcher right now, is that ideally he is your starting catcher for the future, right? Well, you've got a bat that is that good from the catcher position. That is a huge asset to have. And I think Ivan Herrera's bat, like Wilson Contreras' but I'm not ready to say to the same extent of Wilson Contreras, that's for sure. But like when Contreras got moved to first base, you had people freaking out, being like, oh my gosh, like his bat, you can't make him a first baseman. It's like, no, Wilson Contreras, I know he's not hitting to start this year, but his numbers last few years is plenty good enough to be a first baseman. If Ivan Herrera has to become a first base, a DH, maybe a corner outfielder, I don't know how that works with the arm, but who knows? The bat can play, but it obviously plays up way more as a catcher. His blocking and framing has gotten, again, short sample size, but he's in like the 80th percentile or better in both to start the year, which he was kind of average last year. So far, it seems like both his blocking and framing have been a lot better. And so overall, defensively behind the plate at this point, he's pretty comfortable. It's the arm that's the issue, right? It's the fact that I think he's the 6th worst arm out of like 43 catchers who've played so far. His pop time is one of the worst as well. He can't throw runners out right now, which is not good. And so I don't think it has to be a like positional ending liability. Right now, it's not terribly far off of that. If you can't improve it, then it's like, what are you going to do? I think I hope this idea that they're moving toward with him throwing off his knees a little bit more can be a Band-Aid fix. For his ability to throw runners out behind the plate. The pitchers maybe could do a little bit better job holding guys. And then long term, as he works on that arm strength, he can at least get to a place where it's playable. I don't think we're ever going to talk about Ivan Herrera having a great arm, but can he get to even just slightly below average? That would help out a lot. So I'm still going to say Ivan Herrera is a catcher, but when you've got the catching depth behind him with Pedro Pages, Jimmy Crooks, Leonardo Bernal, I don't think you have to force the issue either. It does complicate other positions, though, right? If you move Ivan Herrera off of catcher, does he go to first base? And what does that mean when you have Wilson Contreras or Alec Burleson, Lucan Baker? If you move him to the corner outfield, what does that mean for that mix? If you move him to DH, it's like, okay, you need his bat lineup every day. So, like, you can't keep rotating other guys there. So it gets tricky quick. So the ideal scenario is he's the catcher. I really hope the Cardinals don't mess this up. I've been worried over the last few years that they're going to just kind of give up on the defense and move him. But I think they're proving to us, in my opinion, that they're like, even though they're not handling exactly how I want them to, I have quarrels with, I like Pedro Pages coming into the game late, but I think they did too early on Monday's game against the Angels. And then I really don't understand on Tuesday why they didn't pinch hit Ivan for Pedro in the 7th and 9th innings. I know they did it in extra innings, but it's like, man, that bat, you got to get it in there when you're down. But yeah, long term, I hope, and I think they're viewing him as a catcher, and we'll see if they continue that way. So next question is related to this. I think it's a really interesting one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this next question in the comments. What do you think the Cardinals would do in these situations, or if they'll entertain this idea at all? So the question is, do you think at any point in the season, Ollie would be willing to use Contreras as a defensive substitute behind the plate late in a game or an extra inning situation? Another possible option, which they might be hesitant to do, but do you think they would be consider calling up Crooks as a better defensive option than Pages. I'll answer the second portion first. I do not see them rushing to the Jimmy Crooks side of things. I think they're perfectly content with Pedro Pages as a backup catcher. And so I don't, unless Pages like really falls off, I don't see them with Ivan Herrera being healthy going to Jimmy Crooks, at least first of all, until Jimmy Crooks has more sample size in AAA and they're like, this guy is ready to play. I don't think they're going to rush that situation. Where I think it could get interesting is if Ivan Herrera gets hurt and they think Crooks is ready, then maybe they go to him. And depending on the time of the year and if they're competing, that could be the case of Pages too. But I don't think they would just straight up be like, okay, Pages, we're moving you to AAA and replacing you with Crooks without an injury happening there. Now, the Contreras and late innings thing is interesting to me because, like, there's this take Monday's game, for example. They pull Herrera in the 7th inning to put in Pedro Pages. Then they go down. What they could have done, right, is they could have gone to Alec Burleson or Nolan Gorman at first or to pinch hit for Pedro Pages. And if they do at Burleson, obviously you can move Burleson to first base and Pages can come in, or Contreras can move to the catcher spot. Or if you go to like a Nolan Gorman, then you can move Brendan Donovan to first base or something like that. I don't think they're going to do that. But considering that scenario comes up so infrequently, I think it's something I think I'm sure they've talked about it. These ideas are things, I mean, they're paid to think about these things all the time. They've probably thought about so many different scenarios that you and I don't really ever think about. Like, how many of us really thought that, I'm not saying, I'm not acting like no one thought about this, but I don't think as many of us thought they would consistently go to Pedro Pages and Michael Ciani as like the closers at the end of games as much as they have. Like, I think some of us thought, oh yeah, Ciani would be a substitute lane games for Walker, but the Pages one was interesting. But it's like, oh, I guess that is kind of an interesting fix when you've got late innings and you've got a lead and you don't want guys stealing bases. Anyways, my point to that is those situations where you might want to move Contreras back to catcher because you've already pulled Herrera from the game are so few and far between that I think it might be interesting to try a couple of times a year to try and win a game. My guess, though, is they're not going to do that. But I do think Wilson's their emergency catcher. Like, that makes sense, right? Why on earth would you go to anyone else as your emergency catcher in situations? But I don't know if they'll put themselves in that situation. They've always seemed to be a little more hesitant to use the last catcher off the bench or their only backup outfield option if they don't have to. So, anyways. Final question today. And again, if you enjoy this Q&A episode, if you enjoy the idea of the series, again, submit questions in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on questions too. I'd love to hear your guys' perspective. It's always interesting to hear other thought processes, other viewpoints. Or again, you can let us know questions for next week as well. Again, like the video, helps it out a ton. It helps us know that you enjoy these and want more of these, and subscribe and share because it helps the channel out a ton too. But last question is related more to the minor leagues. I'm going to recommend a really good interview from the other day to get some more feedback on this as well. But the question was, let's talk about details of the pitching lab. Is it running? Who is going and when? What is the MO for how pitching coaching is going on at Memphis? What are they coaching to? And then again, like a side question at the end of that is JJ seriously playing shortstop, or the Cardinals thinking of ditching Win? I'll answer that last one next. No, I can't predict how 2 years from now is going to look, right? Like, remember how people felt about Dylan Carlson. It's like when Dylan Carlson first came up, I don't think people thought 2 years later he'd basically be an afterthought. So there's always the scenario that the Win thing doesn't work out, which is part of the reason I think you play a guy like JJ at shortstop, because it's like, what if Win ends up just totally flaming out? You know, you never know. I purely think the part of Win playing shortstop, you can agree with it, disagree with it, is that the more time you get him there, the more flexibility you have there. It's a harder position to learn. It's a harder position to play. Stretches him. He's probably a second baseman, third baseman long term. But yeah, you never know what'll happen. It's hard to say like 5 years from now, 3 years from now, what your roster is for sure going to look like. It's just so many things can change. So, but yeah, I do not think they're like, oh yeah, JJ's a shortstop of the future. Mason Wynn's on the way out. So, but yeah, who knows? We'll see. I don't know. Maybe again, like I talked about earlier with the logjams, like who knows? Maybe someone offers them an incredible deal for Mason Wynn where they're like, hey, we love Mason Wynn. We're not looking to get rid of this guy, but we're not going to turn down an incredible offer for him. So you never know. But that's not the big point here. The question is about the pitching lab. I have not heard that the pitching lab is constructed yet, and I kind of doubt it is by this point already. I know that they're using this year to make those investments. So I don't know that for a fact, but I think the part of this I think you can get some clarity on if you're interested is 101 ESPN BK and Ferrario just had new assistant general manager of player development and performance, Rob Cerfolio, on their show on Thursday, I believe. And Cerfolio was awesome. It was such a good listen. I totally encourage you to go check out the interview. Cerfolio shared information about what are some of the changes and things he's hoping to see and has already been a part of implementing so far. And I loved his thought process at the beginning. It's like, this is a rich organization and they've done things incredibly well at different seasons. And so in different seasons, not like major league seasons like 2025, 2024, but like seasons of their organization's history. And so it's not about just scrapping everything. It's about figuring out what do we do well? What are our strengths? And continue to be that for the Cardinals and continue to lead the way in those ways. But then what are the things we flagged behind on? And let's revamp those and let's overhaul those and get into a better spot. And so a lot of the changes they've made so far, it's not the extent of them. They will continue to make more changes, but the early ones have been bringing in personnel, whether it's in the front office like Cerfolio or Matt Pierpoint to oversee pitching development, or it's roving instructors, all that kind of stuff. But they will be building more technology, more equipment, more things. Cerfolio talked about how the DeWitts are pouring investment into facilities, and that I think it sounds like that stuff's already begun. And so maybe that pitching lab is up and running. But the bigger thing and more is that's even if it's not those things aren't constructed already, that's part of the plan right now is to have those things. But then Cerfolio went into detail a little bit about what are some of the things they've done to increase bat speed for guys and bat speed programs, or he name dropped Victor Scott as a guy who's been really great to collaborate with. And maybe some of the reasons we're seeing Victor Scott do so well right now is because of the instruction and collaboration he's had. He used that word, and why I'm using it a lot right now, collaboration, a lot, because a lot of what Cerfolio and the new regime coming in's responsibility and philosophy has been how do we make it so that all the way down to the complex leagues, all the way up through AAA and the major leagues, we are teaching things the same way. We are instructing things the same way. We are doing the same processes. We're helping guys get from A to B, A to Z. We're helping them through their whole player development process in a succinct way where we're collaborating the whole way, rather than you kind of do it your way, I kind of do it my way. We don't really communicate a lot. It's kind of crazy. They weren't communicating. They weren't collaborating to that extent. Doesn't mean they weren't at all, but obviously it wasn't a well-oiled machine in that way. So they're working on that. But then he name dropped like Quinn Matthews as a guy who's added in a two-seam fastball. And he talked about with the Guardians and what their philosophy here in St. Louis will be is that they figure out what is a guy's strengths as a pitcher, and then what are some things they can help them implement to make them even better, but complementing their strengths, right? Not trying to make them into a completely different guy. And so we talk about that a decent amount when it comes to like, I think sometimes fans are like, oh, why is like Victor Scott working on launch angle? Because that totally changes his game. And it's like, you're making bad. It's like, okay, there's some yes, there is a way to do that wrong, but what they're trying to do is optimize his game to get him line drive, so he gets extra base hits the ball in the outfield, gets on base more. So if you're hitting the ball on ground all the time, that's not a good thing. With the pitcher, it's like, okay, if a Quinn Matthews is if the guy's a ground ball guy, really good at inducing high ground ball rates and double plays, he's not necessarily going to be a strikeout guy, then we're not going to force some pitches onto him where he's only going to be executed well if he's able to get swings and misses, because he can't get swings and misses. Like, they're not going to say every single pitcher has to throw a sweeper. If a guy is capable of it and can get a good shape on it and get a good feel for it, then yeah, he will throw a sweeper because it will help him out. But if it's like this guy actually needs a kick change or this guy needs a two-seamer, like they're going to help those guys figure things out, because some of the things you've seen with like Andre Palante until recently, he still struggles with right-handed batters, but it was so bad that he just could not be a starter. And he struggled in the bullpen at times. But they helped him introduce some things into his repertoire that helped him get right-handed batters out so that he could be more effective. And so the way he attacks a left-handed batter and the pitches he uses is different than what he does with the right-handed batter. So you'll see those kind of shifts. There's so many different things, but that was just one of the things he touched on in the interview. So highly recommend checking out Cerfolio's thoughts on that. So really appreciate you all tuning into this Q&A episode of Deal on the Cards. It's the first one we're doing the 2025 season. We'll be back on Fridays with these. I'll do a lot of these. I think Sandy will do some of these, Andrew, maybe Kareem. But yeah, if you've got questions, submit them on the episode in the comments. Let us know on Twitter or X. You can join our membership program again on the YouTube. You can get into Discord and submit stuff there. Like and subscribe helps channel a ton. And thanks for tuning in to the Q&A episode.